everyone, it's Danny from Orchid Nature. Okay, so I just realized I don't necessarily have a video about repotting Phalaenopsis orchids, and many of you still ask me questions regarding repotting a Phalaenopsis orchid since it's the most popular orchid, let's face it. So I really did have to repot this girl, so she's the perfect candidate to show some of you who are interested in this how I like to repot Phalaenopsis orchids. Now usually the rule is you have to repot a orchid, any type of orchid, at least once every 2 years. And luckily enough, this orchid has been repotted 2 years ago and she's the perfect candidate. Now why do we have to repot every 2 years usually? I'm not referring here to new orchids or orchids who have issues. Well, because the media in which orchids are potted can break down. And even if you might not be able to see it breaking down, you can definitely smell it when you water your orchid. And if you look really closely at the potting media, you might actually see some of the bad effects of breaking down. And in my case, I have a bad infestation of mushrooms. Now, mushrooms do well in a sort of an environment which is constantly moist, has a lot of ammonia and stuff like that, practically things that fungi can eat. And these things that you see here, they are not sand, they're not anything else but fungus. For this reason and for this video, I will actually wear something like this today because the smell of it is really unbearable. When I'm gonna put it out, it's gonna start to smell like mushrooms. And I don't know about you, but I really don't like it. Anyway, you don't necessarily have to do this. It depends how your orchid looks like. But if you water it and then you start to feel a sort of a decomposing smell, mushroom smell, that's definitely a cue for you to repot your orchid. Now, my orchid is a huge girl, and for those of you who know it, it's the white Phalaenopsis orchid. Now, she did have 2 flower spikes, but she's crazy sometimes and she decided she wants to put out another flower spike, which you can see right here. Now, even though this orchid is producing another flower spike, I do want to repot it. I don't really care if an orchid has a flower spike. If I feel it's necessary to repot it, I do repot it, and I encourage you to do the same thing. It's more important to have a good mother plant than some flowers. If you're patient, you will have beautiful flowers next season. Now, first things first. I will cut this flower spike because the tip is really dry and I know that this orchid will not produce any other buds from the tip. I could just cut this flower spike up to a node here and wait for a secondary spike, but I am not usually the type to do this. I don't necessarily want another flower spike. And of course this orchid has its own little primary flower spike, so first thing, I'll just cut this flower spike. It's also easier to repot if you get this huge flower spike out of the way. Now to do this, I find myself a scissors, any type of scissors that cuts well. I sterilize it, I use alcohol and then just flame it a bit just to prevent other things from transferring to my orchids like virus and other stuff. And what I'll do is try to cut the flower spike as close to the base as possible. Now this is a tricky place for me to cut because I have the new flower spike, so I will just go up a little bit. But if you can cut nearer to the base, that would be great. It would just be more aesthetically pleasing. But since I don't have any space, I'll just cut it from here and hopefully you will be able to see what I do here. I'll give it a good cut. Oopsie. And there you go. Now, of course, this flower spike had a few more flowers, but they will fade away soon. You can see the veins in the flowers already, so they will not last much longer. She's been in bloom since Christmas, so that's enough. But anyway, usually you want to repot your orchid in the springtime, let's say, although you can repot anytime. And usually in the springtime, all the flower spikes are gone. Now, this is a good time to repot because the orchid will start to grow leaves and roots, as you can see here. I have quite a few root tips growing. So now that we got rid of the flower spike and also the stake that was supporting the flower spike, I can proceed to unpotting this orchid. Now after 2 years of growing, your orchid will probably be pretty root bound. Now there's a method. You can soak this pot to make the roots more flexible. I don't think it's the case for now. I'm gonna try to unpot this orchid without soaking it. I simply do not like the mess that wet media will do, and also if I water this media, it will start to smell like mushrooms like crazy. So what I will do is unpot it with dry media. Now you will definitely damage some of the roots, but that's okay. It really happens, and this orchid has quite a lot of roots. Now I know this root here will be sacrificed because it managed to get out of the pot through a hole here, but that is pretty okay. Okay, so first thing you want to do is squeeze the pot gently just to make the roots detach from the side of the pot. Of course, if you have a ceramic pot, you will not be able to do this, and you might want to use a sort of a knife or something, a blunt knife, to go in between the root system and the actual pot. That's why I don't really recommend ceramic pots, and I like to use clear plastic pots. Now, after I do this for a while, I think my orchid is ready to come out. As I said, this root here will be sacrificed, so I might as well rip it off right now, and that's a shame, but the orchid has a lot more roots, so I'm not worried about it. And I think my orchid is ready to come out, so try to catch or to pin the orchid from the base, as close to the base as you can. Don't hold it from the tip because it's kind of fragile and you might actually break it. Hold it close to the base, in between the roots somewhere, and then just try to pull it out gently. It's not gonna be a walk in the park, but eventually you'll manage to get it out. There we go, that was a bit dramatic, but this is how it usually happens. So I really don't need this pot, I have a new pot. I'm just gonna throw this away somewhere. And as I said, the smell is really horrible now, so what I wanna do is try to remove as much of the old media as I possibly can from between the roots. Now try to be gentle at first, remove as much of the media as you can, and if some of the media is attached to the roots, then go to the sink, put some water on it, and the media will come out much faster. So I will just do this now as fast as I can, and I'll come back when I'm ready.